When looking at psychological research, there are a few key things that we need to understand. One, that there are two types of research. Basic research, which seeks to answer the fundamental questions of human behavior, and applied research, which is more concerned with solving problems in people's everyday lives. There are two types of psychologists. Research psychologists, who do nothing but research, and psychologist practitioners, who see patients or clients on a regular basis and apply the results of that research to their everyday lives. Now remember that psychology is a science and it uses the scientific method. That means that the statements made by psychology are considered empirical. They're based on that systematic collection and analysis of data. The goal of doing empirical research is to remove bias. So the goal is that the statements are then objective. Now, when it comes to theories, you may remember this from science classes in high school. There are four basic types of, or four components of a good theory. They have to be general, which means they have to be widely applicable. They have to be parsimonious, stated in the simplest possible way. They have to provide ideas for future research, and they have to be able to be proved wrong. That's why it's a theory, not a law. So remember those four key elements of a good theory. It has to be general, has to be parsimonious, or stated simply. It has to provide ideas for further research, and it has to be falsifiable or proved wrong, or at least be able to be. Now, one of the biggest issues in psychological research is ethics. Any psychological study has the potential for causing harm, either in the form of stress, actual mental harm, or at least inconvenience on the part of the research participants. So how do we determine which studies are unethical and which are okay? Well, there are rules. There's an ethical code, and they're created by two different entities. You need to remember this. The ethical codes created for research are developed by scientific organizations and federal governments. When researchers are designing their studies, they have to abide by both sets of ethical codes. The reason is that the whole purpose of psychological study is to help people get better or help healthy people stay healthy. We can't risk then causing harm to the people that we're studying. So with the goal of preventing harm as much as possible, these codes are developed and must be followed. And the biggest issue for them is deception. How much deception is okay? Because if I tell you everything, full disclosure, is the research study going to work? No, because of your expectations. Let's take, for example, clinical trials. If a pharmaceutical company is trying out a new drug, they get two groups of participants. One group gets the new drug. The other group gets a sugar pill or a placebo. And I'm sure you've heard of the placebo effect. People think they're taking a medication and they're expecting a certain outcome, and therefore they experience that outcome. This wouldn't be possible without at least a little bit of deception, at least lying by omission. They're not being told whether they get the regular medication or the sugar pill. But if they were, the placebo effect wouldn't happen, but the expectations in every participant would be different. And so it would be much more difficult for the pharmaceutical company to gather the information they need to know if the medication actually works or not. So how much deception is okay in a psychological study? Say I take two groups of participants. They all have post-traumatic stress disorder. And I'm going to try two different psychological treatments on them. Now, when I mean psychological treatment, I mean a theory, a perspective in which I'm going to work with them. So in one group, I may use just regular talk therapy, letting them talk it out and deal with their emotions that way. With another group, I might try something that actually tries to reprogram their behavior. But if they know what the expected result of each treatment is, how many of them are going to have that result just because that's what they expect? So at what level can I deceive them? At what level can I omit the facts? That's the biggest question, and that's the biggest concern with psychological studies.